Okay, so there's no time like the present to, oh shoot, whoops, shared it to the wrong group. Hey, how are you guys? I was gonna say I'm sorry for being on late, but you know what? Life happens and we just have to get over that and go on and show up when we can and do our best, right? So let's do that. Hey, Jamie Allen Bishop with Soul Heart Entertainment here for another live ToesDay. Toes, it's all about toes. So for the month of February, we are all about prosperity and abundance. I love this subject. It makes me so happy to talk about this subject. Prosperity and abundance is like talking about, okay, I'm just gonna say it. It's like talking about sex. So fun, so exciting, a little bit taboo on some levels in some ways, and super fun, super fun. There are lots of ways to look at prosperity and abundance. And about 6 months ago, I saw or read somewhere something that was pretty darn profound to me. So I want to share it with you. Hi, Cindy. Thank you for joining. So glad you're here. Yay! All right. So what I heard a few months ago was this quote around overwhelm, and I came from a place of feeling really overwhelmed. So in my corporate position, that feeling of being overwhelmed was very consuming. It's very daunting. It's very heavy to carry with you, this idea of overwhelm and being weighed down with that kind of feeling, right? So somebody said, and I was like mind blown around the idea that overwhelm is a misunderstanding or a miscalculation or a misinterpretation of abundance. And I was like, holy free holies, that's a fantastic way to look at it, because it puts you in this state of really being kind of excited about the overwhelm rather than being daunted by it, rather than being heavy with the idea of overwhelm. It puts you in this lighter, more airy, like, oh my God, look at all this abundance around me. And that feels so much more exciting. It feels so much better. It feels so much more freeing, right? It feels, so if you're just joining, I'd love for you to, make a little comment or send some hearts or something so that it tells me who's here so I can say hello to you, because I love having you here. Thank you so much for being here. So we're talking about abundance and how that looks in, and specifically because it's ToesDay, we'll talk about where that shows up in our toes and why it's important and all that kind of good stuff. So, as I always do, because most of the people who are joining me for ToesDay have no idea what the toes say about us or how they show up or why they show up in our reality. But toes are like, the things that show up in our toes are like getting a report card from the universe. Meaning our subconscious belief systems show up in the physical manifestation of our toes. Oh, you have a copy. Excellent. You have a copy. You know what? It will be so much easier to follow all the concepts that I'm saying by having your map printed. So good job. Right on you. So this is the map that Cindy Rose is referring to. It's the little toe reading map that I just drew out. It has 2 feet, the right and the left. Both of them have all of the elements, or, the 5 main elements represented. And then all of the 7 main chakras are also represented in the toe reading map. So where we're talking about prosperity and abundance, that is our baby toe on our right foot. So it's the earth toe on our right foot, and it very much affects our root chakra and our sacral chakra. So oftentimes where the prosperity and abundance has challenges or shows up in challenges in our life is it shows up in the manifestation of where the relationships kind of entanglement with relationships. It also shows up with how we feel about the stability of our lives, right? So that earthing, that earthly aspect of how those toes show up. You know, interestingly enough, we can survive without the big toe, but we have a really hard time surviving without those baby toes. Those baby toes are pretty darn anchoring to our existence. So crazy. Anyway, so just to quickly go over it, each of the toes, ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Ether is the big picture, that's the big toe. Air is the second toe, it's about communication and creativity. Fire is about how action and temper shows up in our lives. Water is about how we go with the flow or not, or our relationships in our lives. And then earth is about prosperity and abundance on the right side and faith and trust on the left side. When the toes bend or turn or, you know, whatever, toward either the baby toe or the big toe, that has a tendency to mean that we're having communication or that the way that we express ourselves is either past tense or future tense. So let me show you what that looks like in the toes. So, for example, this young gal has toes that kind of, you can see that toe kind of curves. So it comes down, it kind of grabs for the floor, so it has that little bit of a hook to it, and then it bubbles up and it curves toward the big toe. But if you can see, one of the things that I want to point out on this is that bubbling up around the knuckle, that, let me see if I can find it on a different toe so that you can see how that bubbling up shows up. I'm not really, oh, here we go. Okay, found one. So the bubbling up of this toe, for example, you can kind of see that when I say bubbling up, what I'm talking about is just like an extra amount of skin, like kind of the fluffiness of the skin around that toe. Oftentimes it's because we're literally holding on to our stuff as if it is, as if we're afraid to let it go, or maybe we have a lot of collections and they're worth something, right? So that's all part of that idea of prosperity and abundance, right? Can you agree with me on that? Give me some thumbs up or some hearts if you can grasp that concept. When that skin bubbles up and bubbles over, we're holding on to stuff, kind of like Santa's sack, okay? That big sack of stuff that he carries with him to gift to all the children. That's the difference, is that Santa is gifting it away. We have a tendency to keep it. So when we're keeping it, that has a tendency to tell the universe that we're in fear around letting go of things because we're afraid we're not going to receive anything in return. Does that make sense? So one of the things you'll notice is that when people have garage sales or when they're getting rid of stuff, and it's truly them embracing this concept of, you know, letting it go, let it go, let it go. It's this idea that they've kind of changed that atmosphere around holding on to things out of fear and embracing the idea of letting it go because they know that the universe is going to provide for them in other ways. So it has a tendency, people who have, and I mean in that sense, the garage sales that, you know, there are some people that have garage sales every weekend, and that's kind of their way of making a little bit of money on the side. not the same thing, not the same energy, not the same vibration in that experience, versus when you pull up to that one garage sale in the really good neighborhood where somebody's just like, you know what, my son or daughter used this for the 15 years that they were here, and I'm willing to give it to you for like $2 when it's worth, you know, 50 if you were to buy it brand new, or something, you know, kind of more along those lines, those kind of garage sales, where the energy there is just very releasing and very willing to let things go back out into the world to serve their purpose elsewhere. Okay, that's the energy that I'm talking about. And I know that the writing on this isn't gonna be, it's not gonna show up the so amazing letting go with the intention of clearing out the fog. Yes, exactly, completely. So it's with that intention that it's amazing the things that will come back to you. So I'm gonna show you this meme that was created. It's a Jesus and a little girl involving a teddy bear. It's one of my favorite ones because I feel like this is the perfect way to explain prosperity and abundance to people, and especially that vibrational energy of being willing to release things that are no longer serving us, right? So I know the writing's going to be backwards, but that's okay. You can still grasp the concept. So the little girl says, "But I love it, God." And she's holding a tiny teddy bear and she's really kind of clinging to it, right? And he says, "Just trust me." And he has this big, huge teddy bear behind him. And it gives me chills to even tell this, because there's very much a story there. And in this story, there's so much faith and trust that's necessary in order to be open and willing to receive the prosperity and abundance that's right behind, right? Just out of our reach, just out of sight. We can't even fathom how much greatness is out there, right? Yeah, trust. I know, just trust me. Just trust me. So last week or last month, our focus was the faith and trust toe, which is that left baby toe. There's a reason why that one was first. Now, can you see it? Now it's kind of all coming together. The reason why the faith and trust toe comes first before the prosperity and abundance toe is because as within, so without. What's going on inside of you, or us, as the case may be, is going to be perfectly reflected out in the real world that we're experiencing in life, right? So when it comes to prosperity and abundance, are we holding on to the little things that help us feel like we're abundant? And in that sense, we are abundant. And when we embrace that we're abundant in that, it's funny how that will even open floodgates for more abundance, right? But what I was getting at was around those fluffy toes. So when I look at fluffy toes, or the toes that have a little bit of excess, and I'm looking for that picture, and of course it's not popping out at me, but that's okay. We'll go with another one. So the fluffy toes that have a little bit of extra skin, they're kind of chubby toes, right? That has a tendency to be somebody who is holding on to something out of fear of letting it go, okay? So when we're looking down, it does flow. Yes, I know, flow. It can be difficult to get into that flow, right? It can be, we fight it. Don't we fight it? I think it's almost like ingrained in our survival instincts to fight going with the flow because, oh my gosh, what might be downstream, right? It's that fear of the unknown that keeps us kind of stuck doing and behaving the same way that we've been doing and behaving for years and years and years. And sometimes that behavior serves us beautifully, but other times, probably not so much. So it's interesting. I saw a post today. It was very much today that mentioned something about allowing things to show up for you and being willing to see them, okay? So every once in a while I tell this story, so bear with me if you've heard it before, but it's a beautiful look in the world around involving the veil of mystery, if you will, okay? So just imagine for a moment you are the native Hawaiians and you've lived on this island your whole life and you've never seen outsiders before. All of a sudden, somebody pulls up on a rowboat, which you recognize because you and your people have built rowboats and you have, maybe wandered a few, maybe a mile offshore, but at the most, right? And so you recognize canoes and rowboats and things that are smaller in nature, but you would never be able to grasp the concept of a huge ship with stores and stores of products on it, right? It would be so far out of the realm of reality for you that you wouldn't even know what it looked like, right? So imagine that you're this person. You're this native Hawaiian. You see these people row up. You start talking to the captain, and he says, the native person is maybe saying to the captain, like, where did you come from? How did you make it here? I don't know who you are or recognize you. And it's not possible that you're even here. And he's trying to explain, well, we didn't come on these little rowboats. We came on that big, huge ship out there on the shore or out there on the horizon line. And the native person is looking and looking and looking, and they can't see it until the captain describes it in a way that starts to make sense. So one of the things that people do in storytelling is they always relate something to something else that you might already be aware of in order to bridge that gap between what you're not already aware of and what you are aware of. So to kind of make the correlation between the two in order for you to be able to see that ship on the horizon line. Does that make sense? So I have no idea why I'm telling you this, other than to say that there's a very distinct difference between having faith and trust that prosperity and abundance will show up for us, and what that looks like in the toes. I don't even know, to be honest with you, that I have a picture of toes where prosperity and abundance comes easily and naturally to the person. I would say that this is the closest one in the sense that each of the toes comes very straight off of the foot, okay? The problem with that assumption is that these toes aren't very separated, okay? So they're not very open and willing to receive new things. They're kind of closed off. They're really close together. They rely very much on each other in order to create a new experience, right? So I would say that toes like this that are separated, that have that feeling of, this person is definitely open and willing to receive new information, okay? That said, if we get to that baby toe, it somehow closes off again, right? So I think that there's a lot of people out in the world that are kind of struggling with that idea of being open to that unknown. And we're at a crossroads in this. I don't know if you guys can feel it energetically, but there's a lot of really heavy energy happening right now. And I think that part of that is because we're all ready to let it go. We're all ready to release that stuff, that heavy, dense feeling that's no longer serving us as a society, right? And the heaviness is just extra awareness and extra, like, in your face. The universe is just trying to, shake us awake, like trying to make us see what's always been there. But there hasn't really been a way to explain it or feel it or know it, because it just isn't something that we're used to looking for, like the chief on the shoreline. So we have to be open and willing to receive that new information in order to be able to actually see. I got shook, yeah, right? I know. It's great. Yay. Welcome to the club. Honestly, being shook or being in that state of heaviness and being weighted down and feeling overwhelmed and maybe some anxiety goes with that. All of that, to me, from my metaphysical perspective, is the universal notion that it's time to step up to the plate. It's time to own who you are and what you're here to do, because we need all of us to be this authentically imperfect person that we are, and to totally embrace that, and to kiss yourself all over. Like, we have to fall so much in love with ourselves that other people's opinions do not matter anymore. That it's, that's their opinion, and God bless them, they're allowed to have that opinion. Hey, Simon, oh, so glad you're here, yay. Anyway, so yes, so it's just, to me, any kind of dis-ease, hyphenated, where we're not at ease, shows up in our body, sometimes as illnesses, sometimes as pain, sometimes as just anxiety, sometimes as overwhelm or anxiety. All of those things add up to this idea that it's time for us to step up to that plate. It's time for us to embrace who we truly are, to really go for it, to really feel good about who we are and what we're here to do and how we're here to serve the greater good of humanity. And I feel like I'm on my preacher soapbox right now. So I don't mean to do that, but I'm very passionate about this because I feel like it's such an important thing that we all know that pain is there to serve a purpose, and it's a good one. So as soon as we can face that pain and say, okay, I hear you. Thank you for giving me this pain in order to help me step back from my ego and see the bigger picture, see the greater good, see the amazing things that we're all here to do, because every single person is here to do amazing things and fabulous things. And it's so exciting to me. It's so exciting. I love this kind of time when people are really starting to look at who they are and what they're about and embrace that. It just warms me up. That's one of the things that gives me warm fuzzies. Okay, so these are some of my favorite toes, and I'll tell you why. Because if I can show this picture, these big toes are so full of juicy big ideas that this person is just bound to be a person of substance. They're going to have some fantastic ideas. They're going to be sharing them with the world, and you can tell that they're sharing them because that toe is about the same width all the way through. When it shows up like this, is kind of a good picture of it. When they're not sharing their ideas with the world, it kind of gets that skinniness in the middle, and then it kind of fluffs up at the tip, and it shows a little bit better on this one. I'm getting my reminder to wrap it up, but I know I started late, so I want to make sure that I give you all kinds of cool information about this prosperity and abundance toe. So when it comes to the big picture toe, what happens with that big picture is that when somebody shares their big ideas with the world, what the things that are meant for them will stick with them, and people will want desperately to help them build it, right? And the things that are just ideas that are meant to be shared with the world, somebody else will take that ball and run with it. The thing that gets us stuck as humans is we get in that ego state of, well, that was my idea. I'm the one that came up with that. I'm the one that should be paid for that. But guess what? It's not always the case, right? Oh, thank you. Good. I know. Goosebumps are my goosebumps are my thing, Cindy Rose. I know you know that. You took my intuition class. I love that. I totally want to talk to you about how that's been serving you, by the way. Let's connect on that. But so when we have these big pictures that we are sharing with society, what ends up happening is our prosperity and abundance shows up in droves. Because what ends up happening is it's kind of like that story about holding on to the Jesus image, right? So, or the God image, whatever. He looks like Jesus, or at least the Jesus I grew up seeing. But it's that faith and trust that something better is around the corner. And when we share our big ideas with everybody, and anybody who will listen to those big ideas, it all comes back to us. It all comes back. Like, so one of the Deepak Chopra, he did a 21-day challenge for sitting in meditation. Okay, it was very, very basic. He kind of did it. The videos are, I think, about 15 minutes long each. He talked for about 10 minutes of that video. So the actual meditation is probably only around 5 to 7 minutes, give or take. Very, very basic stuff. Music in the background. He gives you a little mantra to say while you're kind of learning and getting into this routine of making this become a habit for you. In doing so, what he was doing is building up this energy around creating these habits that serve the higher good, the higher self, the higher experience in life. And in them, he goes on and on and on about how what is meant to be in the world is through us. That's what we're here to do. That's why we're human. That's why our soul chose this body and this experience at this time in order to be able to come forward and fully embrace everything that's going on. So these are some of my favorite toes because of that, because this person is totally showing up, telling her big ideas to anybody who will listen. And she's pretty even keel. All of these toes are showing up pretty even. They're showing up pretty straight off the toes. And then she gets a little bit stuck around that prosperity and abundance and that faith and trust. And you can see that because those toes kind of bend toward the earth. So they're holding on a little bit more for dear life. I think I've told this story where we are the drivers of the cart and horse that pull our lives. We're the drivers. So when, that bending of the toe like that kind of hook of the toe, it just reminds me of pulling back on those horse straps to slow that horse and buggy down. It's like there's not a whole lot of faith. There's a lot of fear in that. There's a lot of concern about what might happen, all of that kind of stuff. That's where meditation comes in, you guys. You have to get in a state of calm and peace in the eye of that freak out storm, right? My husband always does a little imitation of you're giving me the freak outs. So that little thing goes through my head and it just makes me giggle. But that's kind of, so anytime I get into that state of being really overly concerned about something, I kind of do those little funny, goofy things in my head to make me lighten up and calm down a little bit. And it's not that big a deal. I can, take a deep breath. And that's what meditation is learning to take those deep breaths, calm yourself into a state of a sense of peace, and then moving forward into some sort of decision-making process, right? So when I did the toe reading for this gal, that was one of the things that we focused on is where can we release that tightness on that tight hold on the horse that's driving our cart. We need to kind of loosen it up. We need, you know, you can still hold those straps and still be in complete control over where that cart is going and which direction and how fast and all that kind of stuff. But you don't have to be, you know, you don't have to have that horse like back up into the, does that make sense? All right, but so this is one of the only before and after images that I have of toes, but they're so profound I wanted to show you, okay? So this is a dear friend of mine who was vulnerable and kind enough to share these images with me. So this is her before. And if you look at her before, what you're looking at is a lot of the toes that are kind of pointed down, you know, even pointed down just right at that tip. So just in the last portion of her lifetime, she's kind of grabbing for the earth, grabbing hold tight, a lot fearful around almost all the subjects in her life, right? And here is, I kid you not, 1 month later, after working with toe reading, okay? So I don't know if you notice, but in this before picture, okay, they're both left on the same side, they're both right on the same side, okay? So I'm gonna try to hold these up so that you can see how significantly different these toes are just in a matter of 1 month. The communication toe is standing way straighter up. The action toe is like not even kind of. Like this person, I know, right? It's crazy how much change has happened in such a short period of time. And I feel very strongly that this is, part of it is just having the awareness of where we're holding ourselves back, where that piece of the puzzle is that keeps us from moving forward into and embracing and just completely loving on the person who we truly are meant to be in this lifetime, right? Anyway, so that's a dear, dear friend of mine. She went through an incredible transformation in a very short period of time, and it was really exciting to see. Well, next time we'll talk more about the prosperity and abundance toes. But one of the things that I wanted to show you with these toes that I showed you from the very beginning. Okay, so this is the right foot. That's the prosperity and abundance toe. I think that you can see it pretty easily on this one, but there is what amounts to a little teardrop shape there. Do you see that? It's not the same on this side. So on her in her internal self side, she doesn't have that tear shape going on, okay? But she does have that tear shape on this right side, okay? So the right side being her external self side, that tear shape can represent a cycle in life that's not serving. The other thing that it can represent is a real depression or a real holding on to that past thing, because if you look to see where her toe is bent, you can see that her toe is bent. It's kind of like folded over where the toenail is pointed out to the past, okay? That's what I mean by past. Anyway, it's this cycle of making kind of the same mistakes. It's not really a mistake though. I don't want you to think of it that way. It's the same decisions over and over, and those same decisions over and over have brought heartache and pain and sadness to her. So working on getting past that heartache and pain and sadness is just a matter of adjusting why we're making those decisions, right? Are we making those, we have to be making those decisions from some place within us that feels comfortable, that feels normal, that feels like it's a good thing. But obviously it's not, because your body is literally showing you that it's making you sad. It's showing you through that little teardrop. So Take a look at your toes. If you have any questions, send me pictures and or ask me some questions. I cannot wait to talk more about prosperity and abundance next time because I absolutely love this subject. It excites me, and I want everybody to be the top 1% in the world. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I hope you enjoyed the ToesDay of February, the month of love and partnership. Oh, hey, Kim, so glad you made it. You made it right at the tail end. So please watch the replay if you get a chance. You'll absolutely love. We talked all about prosperity and abundance tonight. So thank you for being here. Bye. See you next Tuesday.